Welcome, friends, to Chapter 5, Specialized Knowledge, Personal Experiences or Observations, and the fourth step toward riches. In this chapter, Hill's goal is to define what he means by organized knowledge and how it gets us closer to bringing our definite chief aim into reality, right? So this whole time, we've been told to set a goal, to think about how we could do it, to believe in ourselves that we can make it happen. But now is the time to figure out if we know how to actually bring it into reality, right? So now is the act. We're getting into action. Before we can act, we should know what the actions are that lead us towards it, right? We don't want to just be acting for the sake of acting. We want to be acting in a directed manner. So to have that directed manner, we have to have knowledge. So we're going to tie in how knowledge right now and a specific kind of knowledge can get us closer to our goals. For Hill, there are two types of knowledge, which are general and organized knowledge. So general knowledge is the sum culmination of knowledge, right? So everything we're taught in school, things we learn from our education or from experience. And then organized knowledge is when we take that general knowledge and combine it in ways that bring us towards its realization. So he fleshes this out a bit on page 91 when he talks about the university, right? So he argues that universities contain most of humanity's knowledge, right? If you use their school board, the library, resources, everything, and you combine all the universities, that is most, if not all, of humanity's accumulated knowledge. And it's been very specialized in their categories, right? So you have your 100 classes, which are intro to bio, for example, and then it gets into plants and gets deeper and deeper as the years go by, and then you do a master's or PhD, and you keep climbing up the academic ladder, and the knowledge keeps getting more and more specialized into their respective categories, which are then taught to millions, if not billions, of people yearly. But given that, Hill points out that most professors themselves are not financially successful. So why is that? Again, because this book's goal is to get us financially successful. So why is it that most people who are teaching in the universities themselves with all of humanity's knowledge are not rich? And he argues that it's because they specialize on teaching knowledge, not on organizing it in useful ways. And what kind of useful ways is he talking about, right? Because it is specialized knowledge and it is organized in very specific ways, but he's talking about riches. For example, they might teach you how an organization functions well in a business course, but it won't teach you what business you should start for yourself and how to combine your personal experiences with the knowledge that you're being taught to create a successful business, right? It gives you a foundation of knowledge, but then you're called to figure out how to actually put it into use. So there generally is little guidance from school itself once you leave it and onto how to become successful with what you've learned. So the classes that you're taking in university don't necessarily lead you to riches. You got to figure out how to use them and combine them with knowledge and personal experience and other things that you've encountered to become a tool to lead you to your goal of financial success, if that is your goal, which is again the point of the book. And obviously, I still think that you can use all these things towards any goal, and it still holds. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you got to use that knowledge and combine it. Like you could go take an MBA right now, right, and study business in university, but it still won't teach you exactly what you have to do to become rich. It won't tell you what business to start. You still have to take that business knowledge, right, that you're getting from your formal schooling and then direct it towards your goal and what you want to create as a business and the riches you want to accumulate. That's still up to you. You have to take that knowledge and utilize it. The knowledge by itself is kind of not useless, but we'll get into that. I think the main point is something similar to the saying that we already have what we need to get to where we want. We're just not using it properly. Many of us all have the puzzle pieces needed to succeed, let's say, but we struggle to put them together. And it doesn't matter if I know a bit about quantum physics and a bit about plant genealogy and a bit about philosophy if I can't learn to combine them and use them towards my definite chief aim, right? Like all these little sprinkles of knowledge are maybe fulfilling in themselves to be a knowledgeable person, but I have to figure out how to combine them to get me closer to my goal. That's what we're doing right now, is we're trying to focus our knowledge in a certain direction. That is not to say that knowledge in itself is useless, but for the purposes of this book, right, we must focus on organizing it in ways that get us closer to our goals. And if our goal truly is our definite chief aim, then we need to take inventory of what knowledge we already possess, right, that can help us in the attainment of our goal. Everything else becomes irrelevant. Of course, you could study plant genealogy and quantum physics or philosophy for fun as a hobby, but if your definite chief aim has nothing to do with them, then it's just knowledge for knowledge's sake, not the organized knowledge that Hill is trying to emphasize here. And again, that's not to say that knowledge in itself is not worthwhile, but we're trying to direct it in an organized way towards getting our definite chief aim realized. So he elaborates on this on page 91. He writes, "Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money." So for Hill, knowledge is only potential power, right? Knowledge can and will actualize into power only when it's organized and directed towards our definite chief aims with a plan of action. So there is no point for an army general to think about his quantum physics class when in the battlefield, right? It's not going to add anything to the combat situation. Potential power, though, right? All knowledge can serve. I mean, there might be some kind of scenario where that actually proves to be useful. So that knowledge has a potential for power if it becomes relevant. And that's a nice idea, right? So we all have within us, through our own personal experiences and our learning, potential power. We just have to learn how to combine it into useful ways to bring and to aim it towards our goals, our definite chief aim specifically. Of course, we may not actually know what needs to be done for the goal we've set for ourselves. So we may simply not have the experiences to meaningfully progress towards those goals. And sure, we may be able to combine our knowledge into other useful ways, but not much towards our actual definite chief aim. For example, I could want to start a fencing company. From my past, I have the sales skills required to attain new clients. I know I can do that. I know I can market it. I know I could brand it sufficiently. I even know how to manage the bookkeeping, let's say, but I don't know anything about actually making a fence. I don't have the knowledge I need to start actually rendering the service for the, right? Like, even if I do get the sale and I can't render the service and the business dies instantly and I get into boatloads of problems that we'd rather avoid, and we want to provide excellent service so people come back and refer us and to build credibility. So what do we do when we don't have the knowledge required? And that seems pretty straightforward, right? But Hill wants to slow us down and say we don't need to know everything, right? We might jump the gun and right away say, oh, well, we can go learn it. Well, he's saying we might not need to know everything. And Hill doesn't expect us to know, and we most likely don't know everything we need to achieve our definite chief aim at this point. But he points to every CEO, right? Does every CEO know everything about the product they're selling? Does every CEO in metal companies have multiple degrees in metallurgy? So being a leader is something different. And to lead a company, you don't necessarily need all that knowledge on hand all the time, right? But if it does come up and you do need to access that information, then you have the capacity to obtain it from reliable sources, whether those are your teammates or if you really do need to go learn it, then go learn it. But you have tools that you don't need the knowledge in your brain at all times, right? You have different skills that you're using. You're focusing your efforts on being a leader and directing the company rather than knowing, what paper supplier you're using for all your receipts or something like that. But if you do need that information, you could find it. So when a leader doesn't know something, what do? right? They have people in their team that can answer the questions, or people who can get the answers needed. And Hill quotes Henry Ford replying to a question from a lawyer which was trying to undermine Ford's knowledge, and Ford responds by saying, and this is on page 93, "I can summon to my aid men who can answer any question I desire to ask concerning the business to which I am devoting most of my efforts." So again, for the example I was using about the fencing company, I may actually never have to have the knowledge of how to build a fence myself, for example. However, I must be willing to learn or have people in my team who can do it. For example, partnering with someone with that physical experience, right? And by combining our skills, we have what it takes to start the business with a strong foundation. Don't know somebody? Well, then we can interview people who may be providing the labor, but in an unprofessional way, but are otherwise good and hardworking people who can create quality fences, right? Offer to team up, show how you can provide value, or you can always go learn yourself, right? But now is the time to start thinking about our knowledge that we have and and our experiences and how we can combine them towards getting closer to our goal. We can team up with people, or we can go learn. All the information is there, but we might already have sufficient knowledge to get started on creating a functional plan. And by executing that plan, we're going to learn more about what worked, what didn't work, and keep adapting, right? So we'll keep learning. We can also team up with people. But now is a time to kind of reflect on our body of knowledge and think about what pieces of our knowledge can be combined to get us closer to our definite chief aim. What aspects and experiences have we been through that, if utilized right now, could help towards our plan of accumulating riches or starting that business that we're thinking about, or getting closer to our habits, or whatever we're trying to change and influence in our lives. So, in closing, the goal is to think about the knowledge we've already accumulated and think about how we can put it to use toward our definite chief aim. What gaps are there in our knowledge, and can those gaps be filled by combining our efforts with teammates? I'll see you next time.